all night long. Fancy helping some faces, young and old, to warm the hearts when it's snowing and it's cold. You're gonna have to find a crew, it can't be anyone. They'll have to be there by your side and do what must be done. So go, man, you know that you have it night through day. The pain you will feel it to bring it on with the Archer County Band. Doubts come and some may never die, so I'll ask myself, should I stop before I try? No way, man, mistake, it has been said. I'm all in, so there's nothing I'll regret. But time is ticking and there's so much that's going through my mind. Will I make it? Yes, I will. Our spirits are entwined. So let's get this show on the road. I'm here, I'll stay and I'll carry the load to bring it on with the Archer County Band. But hold on a second now, I'm starting to feel the strain. Was it a bicycle? What is wrong with my brain? Is it the end of me? No, I must still believe. So I'm still alive, you see. Heck yeah, now I'm on my way. Let's stay focused, there's still a job in hand that we must do. Cameras start to click, we know what create is something new. So go, Marty and Sarah and Mark and Matt, Owen, Smitty, McGrilly and Jamie Lane in the Archer Good evening, folks. You are very welcome to Bandido Talks, live here on YouTube, 7 p.m. We are back tonight for the final live stream of the weekend, episode 13. More news on the tube. The news on the tube never stops, especially on a Saturday and on a Sunday here on Bandido Talks. We had a really good show last night, but I have to confess, just at the beginning of tonight's episode, around 47 minutes in last night's show, when I was watching the stream back, just to make sure that everything was recording and going according to plan, around the 47-minute mark in last night's show, a gremlin invaded our stream. The fearsome gremlins, the technological gremlins that can invade from time to time. What do I mean by this? Well, around 47 minutes in last night's stream. Now, during the stream, I did not realize that the gremlin had snuck in and was wreaking havoc. But around 47 minutes, of course, what happens? The gremlin does its dirty work, and it causes the video and the audio to go out of sync. So, of course, when the Bandido, the good old Northern Irish Bandido, when he was reviewing last night's stream, and around that 47-minute mark, once he realizes that the gremlin has done its dirty work, action needed to be taken. So what you will notice on the Bandido Talks main channel page is that I've had to split last night's live stream into two parts. Normally this doesn't happen. It's just a contingency. It's a backup for when gremlins invade the stream and wreak havoc. So part one of last night's stream, the first half of the stream pretty much, is up on the main channel page right now. And part one, we were of course dealing with Reform UK, the Chancellor with Reform UK and his back and forth with the Education Secretary. So that part of the stream is up on the channel right now. I will post either tonight or tomorrow evening. I'm not sure yet. It depends how the Bandido feels. If he's up to it tonight after tonight's show, I will post part two. And part two, what I've done is, I've taken the part of last night's live stream, the second half, I've put it into my video editing software, and I've managed to sync up, once again, the video and the audio. So everything will be running as it should. So either after tonight's show, or tomorrow night, I will post part two, where we talk about Nancy Pelosi, the politician in the United States who has, of course, retired from the House of Representatives. We get into all things concerning Nancy Pelosi. And then we deal with some of our live chats as well. The live chats were interesting. I'll not spoil too much. I will upload part two. If you've already seen part one, good on you. Part two will be coming with the audio and the video fully in sync. So, with that little amusing story. These are the joys of live streaming. The gremlins can sneak in and they can do the dirty business on the streamer. In this case, the Bandido. But the Bandido had a backup plan. And his backup plan is going to work. So anyway, with all of that said, if you enjoy our little Saturday and Sunday segment here, News on the Tube, feel free to give the video or the stream tonight a like. Hit that little thumbs up if you think there's some interesting terrain that is covered. Of course, if you are joining us live, feel free to get active in the live chat. The Bandido will, of course, check the live chat. At the end of the show, I may periodically check the live chat tonight as the show goes along, just to make sure that if there are any gremlins in our live stream, any gremlins tonight, if you notice any gremlins, if you're watching live
and you notice that a gremlin has invaded the live stream and is wreaking havoc with the audio or the video, drop me a message in the chat, in the live chat, to let me know if I'm not being heard or if there's a synchronization problem between audio and video. Let me know in the live chat. If everything sounds good, you can give me a thumbs up in the live chat just so I know that everything is running smoothly. We need a smooth operation here on Bandido Talks. Apart from that, feel free to interact with the show in the live chat. We will of course be covering various news articles. This is what we do here on News on the Tube, our little Saturday and Sunday segment. We literally go to the Bandido's Google Chrome browser and we see what stories, what random media articles are going to come up, and then we're going to dig into these media articles and see what golden nuggets, what lessons we can extract from these media articles and apply them to our own existence. That's what we're going to do tonight. So of course, if you've got any questions, any comments, any queries, anything you would like to add to the show in the form of engagement, get into the live chat. I will of course check all of our live chats and go down through whatever it is that you guys are commenting about the show. If of course you're watching the show after it has been posted, after the live event, get down into the comments section, let me know what you thought about the show. And then finally, if you like what we do here at Bandido Talks, if you think there's value to be extracted from the show, if you think we're doing something useful, or it's just interesting or entertaining, feel free to become a subscriber to the channel. There will be plenty of content coming your direction. Remember folks, we are live every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on YouTube at 7 p.m. That is every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, live here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Irish time. We will of course have an upload every Tuesday. That could be with a guest, or it could be a best bits compilation of all of the highlights from the previous week's shows. So lots of content coming your direction. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you think what we're doing here is interesting or valuable in some fashion. With all of that out of the road, let's get into tonight's show, folks. News on the Tube, as I've already said, for any of our new viewers, what is News on the Tube? We essentially take standard media articles, we get in underneath the headline and see what are the lessons within these standard media articles. We try to attack them from a different perspective. So let's get into tonight's show. Let's get into news item number 1. Let's see what Google Chrome is going to provide me with. What story is going to greet us tonight? Let's have a look. Straight to the phone. Now, last night's show, we only got through 2 stories, but I thought it was a really good show. I thought it was a very interesting show. So let's see how we get on tonight. Let me just check the live chat before I start to make sure that everything is working as it should be. So, now of course, we're going to go down through all of our live chats at the end of the show. But I've just got a comment here from Blondie in the live chat. So Blondie has been paying attention to the beginning of tonight's show. And Blondie has put in the live chat, the Bandido is on point, with a big thumbs up emoji. So I'm going to assume that Blondie is telling the truth. I'm going to assume that Blondie isn't a double agent for the Gremlins. Imagine that. Imagine Blondie was a double agent for the Gremlins. We're going to assume that Blondie, our commenter, is on our side. So everything seems to be on point. I'll periodically check the chat just to make sure we don't have an invading gremlin. But so far, so good. Okay, so let's continue with tonight's show. Let's see what we're going to be greeted with. Story number 1. Okay, so first story is from The Guardian. Now, is The Guardian going to make me subscribe? No, it's not. Thank you, Guardian. So let's have a read and see what it is that we are being greeted with. So here's the headline of our first news item. Tim Davie resigns as BBC Director General after accusations of, quote, serious and systemic bias in coverage. Davie tells staff departure was my own decision, in quotes, but it comes with the BBC preparing to apologise for the way it edited a Trump speech. Let's read a few paragraphs of this. I'm enjoying this article already. Tim Davie, the BBC's Director General and the head of BBC News, have resigned after a former advisor to the corporation accused it of, quote, serious and systemic bias in its coverage of issues including Donald Trump, Gaza, and trans rights. In a shock move, Davie said his departure was his own, but comes with the BBC preparing to apologise for the way the broadcaster edited a Donald Trump speech. Now, the article goes on. It's a long article, but I think we get the gist of this article. I think we get the gist of it. So here we have Tim Davie, the BBC's Director General. He has resigned. Now he's telling us he has resigned of his own accord. He's telling us, oh no, I wasn't sacked, folks. Believe me, folks, I wasn't sacked. I resigned because I wanted to resign. I resigned of my own accord, on my own terms. Old Tim here is trying to convince us that he wasn't sacked. Now, those of you who have watched the last few weeks of our show, we've already talked, I think it was episode 8, The Art of the Porky Pie. That's a good episode, folks. It's all about lying and deception. Very good episode, I think. We've also talked about the idea of how whenever people really try to convince you of something, they really try to convince you of something. Like our mate Tim here. What is his full title? His full title is BBC's Director General. So the BBC's Director General, Tim, is really trying to convince us that he was not sacked. Oh no, he left on his own terms. Okay, Tim, we'll let the viewing public make up their own decision about that. So Tim's claiming he stepped away. And the reason why, according to this article, so there have been some accusations made against the BBC about how they have edited a Trump speech and other particular news items, such as the coverage on Gaza and other issues relating to trans rights, etc. Now, what are the accusations? Now, I could go down through the news article, but folks, you know the deal at this stage, how the Bandido works. The headline, the subtitle, a few paragraphs, and we have it. We kind of know what we're dealing with here. So, old Tim, the BBC's Director General, Tim, our mate Tim here on Bandido Talks. Maybe Tim is a subscriber along with Gavin Newsom and Lord Mervyn King. I think we've got some very wealthy subscribers here on Bandido Talks. They don't make their subscriptions public. Oh, they never do. They wouldn't want to be seen following the Bandido. But I think there are some wealthy people that follow us. Maybe Tim does. Now that he's unemployed, maybe we can give him a job here at Bandido Talks. Because I'm running this solo operation. It's a solo operation at the moment. Maybe Tim, because he was the BBC's Director General, maybe he could help me out with directing Bandido Talks. Tim, drop me your CV and I'll consider it. Anyway, Tim and the BBC, they are facing accusations of, let's say, unfavourably editing Donald Trump's speech. Whatever this speech was, Donald Trump has given a particular speech. And what seems to have happened is the BBC has got their editors to edit the speech and put certain parts of the speech together. We could argue out of context. That's just me speculating. Maybe some of the parts of this Donald Trump speech have been sliced and glued together out of context. And why would this happen? Let's have a think about this, because we're all here on Bandido Talks. We're all here to see what are the lessons in these news and media articles. What are the lessons that we can take away and apply to our own existence? Well, first things first. The fact that our mate Tim, has resigned sounds a little suspicious. If everything was hunky-dory, and there was nothing to hide, there was no big deal, nobody's done anything wrong, why do we have resignations? Why do we have resignations? Why did Tim feel the need to step away on his quote own terms? He wasn't fired now, folks. Remember, he wasn't fired. He stepped away of his own accord. Little suspicious in light of these accusations, because these accusations seem to have been flying around for the last, few days, maybe few weeks. It would appear from the article. They've been flying around. And now Tim's decided to stand down. Okay, we could look at that and say, that's interesting. In the middle of this scandal, we're going to call it, this scandal where it appears that the BBC has been unfavourably editing a Donald Trump speech and has been putting clips together, cutting and pasting clips together to try and present, we could argue, Donald Trump in a certain way to the viewing UK public. Because what is editing? You folks know that here on Bandido Talks, let me give you an example. On Bandido Talks, we go live every Friday, Saturday and Sunday at 7 p.m. here on YouTube. Now, as you know, you folks know what my stance is on editing. I never edit my live streams unless there's a gremlin, unless there's an invader and something has fallen out of sync, or there's been a picture, the imagery has been lost, or the audio has been lost. That's the only time I'm going to go in and try to realign things. But otherwise, you can go down through all of the episodes that we've done so far here on Bandido Talks. You never see me edit my videos. I start at second one and finish at the very end of the stream, having not edited anything. So you get to see me here and now, on the spot, presenting myself without any editing. In other words, what am I saying? You get the full context surrounding this particular episode. When you watch these episodes, they've been streamed live, so there's no editing. You get to watch the whole thing live here in the moment. And as a result, you get all the context of the discussion. Now, what has happened here with the BBC with regards to this Donald Trump speech? Well, what has happened is the BBC, it would appear, has taken certain parts of the speech out of context. They've taken certain parts of the speech out of context, pasted them together in order to present a narrative to the viewing British public. In order to what? In order to present Donald Trump in a certain way. Now, why edit a speech in that fashion? Why edit it in such a way so that you're trying to, we could argue, we could speculate, because what happens when you edit? When I do this live stream, I'm not editing anything. I'm letting you, the watching and listening public, make your mind up about the discussion in its whole context. But when you edit something, why would you edit something? Okay, you might edit something because there's a gremlin. Fair enough. But we're talking here about Donald Trump and him doing this publicly broadcasted speech. The speech is available on YouTube, on X, on social media. You can easily find the full speech. So why would we edit something? Well, we might edit something because we want to condense it. So we want to make it more digestible for the audience that's watching. And that's fair enough. I think that's fair enough. So let's imagine, I don't know how long this Donald Trump speech went on for. Let's say it went on for 30 minutes. So can the BBC broadcast on their, whatever it is, their 6 p.m. or 6 o'clock news? Can they broadcast the entire Donald Trump 30-minute speech on that segment? No, they can't do that. Because they don't have enough time, given the restrictions on that type of media. So what do? You have to edit it. You want to condense it so that the public can have a more digestible form of the speech. That's fair enough in principle. In principle, that's fine. It's a summary. Because if you want to watch the full speech, you can of course go and watch it on YouTube or elsewhere. But notice that this starts to get a little bit dicey. It starts to get a little bit tricky. Because what happens if the media outlet who is summarizing this, let's say, 30-minute Donald Trump speech, what happens if the media outlet, in this case the BBC, what happens if they decide to take certain parts of the speech out of context and then paste them all together? How is that going to look to the viewing public? Well, let's think about this, folks. When we have discussions with our friends, with our family, when we're in a room with people and we've been talking with people for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it is, all of the people who are a part of that particular conversation understand the underlying context of the discussion. So everybody involved understands the general dynamic of the discussion. They understand the entire context. Now, I think we would all agree, when any one of us speak, any one of our statements throughout the day could be clipped out of context in a 5-second or 10-second clip, and whenever you remove the context, the clip in isolation can look a little peculiar. It can look strange. It can look controversial. It can look racist. It can look homophobic. It can look misogynistic. It can look anti-Semitic. All of these words we have. It can look Islamophobic. When we take a clip out of context, it's very easy to draw an incorrect conclusion from the speaker in the clip. We have a name for this. It's called clickbait. Clickbaiting, or we could say clipping the person out of context. Now this is important because we all understand that when we're speaking, whether it's a public event, if we're giving a speech, or if we're talking among friends, family, or maybe among business partners, whatever it is, the people who are at the speech or the people who are part of the discussion understand the whole context because they have been present during the entire discussion. But what happens if you're a viewer on the 6 o'clock news of BBC? What happens if you haven't watched the full Donald Trump speech in its entirety? What happens if your first exposure to the speech is through the edited version of the speech via the BBC? And what happens if it's the first time you've actually ever heard Donald Trump? These are interesting things to consider because when you edit someone, in other words, when you take their speech and you strip away the context and you copy, you click bait. In other words, you clip out parts of their discussion or their conversation. You paste them together. It's very easy through editing to paint a certain person in a certain light. You can essentially generate a portrait of this person that may not actually be representative of who that person actually is or what it is that that person believes. But when you clip them out of context, you can, as a viewer and a listener, draw incorrect conclusions from this particular speaker. So, with all of that backdrop, what is it that the BBC has actually done? Well, what the BBC has done is they have taken Donald Trump's speech. Our mate Tim has taken Donald Trump's speech. They have carefully edited the speech, pasted together the clips, and they've released a version, an edited version of this speech so that they can paint Donald Trump in a certain way. They can have the light shine on him in a certain way, from a certain angle. Now, clearly, our mate Tim has stepped down. On his own terms, remember? And the BBC is facing backlash because what has happened? Clearly what has happened is someone has a version of the speech and someone has been able to highlight what the BBC has done. So someone has a representative version of the speech, and clearly what someone has done here, because it's created an uproar, it's caused people to start to doubt the BBC's credibility for reporting, because someone has clearly provided a more representative example of the speech, whether it's the wording, the lighting, how Donald Trump looks, whatever it is, they've got the more representative version of the speech, and then they've put it alongside the BBC's edited version. This is what I think has happened. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I think has happened. Someone has the representative version, the version that's actually accurate. They've put it alongside the BBC's edited, altered version, and they've then released it into the public sphere. And of course, what has happened? People have then looked at the accurate representative version, and then people have compared it to the BBC's edited version that was released on their 6 o'clock news, 8 o'clock news, 10 o'clock news, whatever segment of their news. They've compared the two, and they've went, oh, well, I'm starting to see some discrepancies, actually, because this is the accurate representative version of Donald Trump's speech, and here's the BBC's edited version that has been altered, and oh dear, they ain't consistent. They are at odds with one another. And if this is the actual representative, accurate version, and this is a version that's portraying Donald Trump in an inaccurate way that doesn't represent what he actually said or what he actually means by what he has said or what he actually thinks as a political leader. If people realize that this BBC edited version wasn't actually depicting Donald Trump in an accurate fashion, and they've now been found out, what does this remind us of, folks? Does this sound familiar, folks? Episode 8 of Bandido Talks, The Art of the Porky Pie. What was the porky pie equation? We talked about the porky pie equation in episode 8. And the porky pie equation is essentially, you need to weigh up the cost-benefit analysis of lying. You need to weigh up, is the benefit of me telling the lie worth the cost of me being found out as being a liar? That's the porky pie equation. Now, when you edit, we could easily make the argument, when you edit something in a deceptive way, in a way that doesn't really present the true thoughts, feelings, and opinions of the speaker in question, what are you actually doing? We call it editing, but what are you actually doing in this case? You are lying about the person. You are telling a porky pie about the person. So the way I look at this article is the BBC has been caught telling a porky pie. Uh-oh. They've been caught telling a porky pie. And remember, this is particularly problematic for an institution like the BBC because they are a news station. N-E-W-S, news. People tune in to find accurate and up-to-date news. So what happens when a news outlet has been caught with their underwear around their ankles telling porky pies? Does that undermine the credibility of the journalists and the people reporting from that institution? One could make the argument that people going forward may be more skeptical about future news stories that come out of said institution, Because when you tell a porky pie and you've consulted the porky pie equation, does the benefit of me telling the lie outweigh the cost of me potentially being found out as being a liar? If you consult the porky pie equation. But what happens if you consult the porky pie equation and it turns out that when you thought you were going to get a lot of benefit through your deceptive editing of Donald Trump's speech, you thought you were going to be able to paint Donald Trump or portray him in a certain light, in a certain fashion. But what happens if people find out that you've actually deceptively edited that speech and presented Donald Trump in a way that isn't representative? It's not accurate. One could argue that it undermines the credibility of that institution. So what is the lesson here, folks? The lesson from this article is as follows. Be very aware of where you get your information from. Because here we have an instance, all out in the public sphere now. The aftermath of this scandal will long live on the internet. It'll be long-lived. So when we are trying to find accurate information, we must assess the credibility. An important part of trying to find the most accurate information is to assess the credibility of the source of information. I think that would be fair. I think that's a fair comment. If you're trying to assess, is this good quality information? I think it's fair to say, okay, what is the track record of the source of this information? So the source of this information, do they have a good track record? Do they tend to tell the truth? Or have they been found out on multiple occasions telling porky pies? Have they been found out on multiple occasions of incorrectly running the porky pie equation? Because the lesson here, folks, is when we pay attention to our sources of information, and here we have the BBC and Tim, the Director General, who has stood down on his own terms, remember? So Tim has stood down and the BBC is now in the midst of this storm because it seems like they have been caught with their underpants where their socks are. Where do you wear your socks? Your socks tend to be down around where your ankles are. So if your underpants are down around where your socks are, that means you've been caught in the buff. Who wants to be caught in the buff? We generally like to go out into the public sphere clothed. You tend to retain your credibility when you are clothed. People take you seriously when you're clothed, when you wear clean clothes and you're tidy and you're presentable and you have a signature style. But if you were to walk out into the public sphere with your underpants down, hanging out with your socks, people would look at you and say, well, he doesn't have a lot of credibility. If that individual who's walking around with his underpants down, hanging out with his socks, it doesn't really matter what he says or she says. You will look at that individual and go, why are your underpants down with your socks? Why are your underpants having a party down around at your ankles with your socks? One could argue that the BBC, in this instance, is out in public at the moment with their underpants, having a party down around at their ankles with their socks. In other words, the BBC are like a bare bum in the shower. Because it seems that there's been some deceptive editing going into their production with regards to this Donald Trump speech. So the lesson here, folks, is let's do our due diligence on our sources of information. So if we're paying attention and it turns out that certain institutions or sources of information have a lousy track record with telling the truth, then we ought to have a serious conversation with ourselves when it comes to accepting what said source, who has a dubious track record, is actually saying. We ought to at least try to have a second opinion, try to find a second opinion elsewhere, just to make sure that there isn't some deception or that there aren't some porky pies in play. Okay, that's story number one. Tim, the Director General of the BBC. And, of course, the BBC being caught with their underpants, hanging out with their socks. Never a good look. One could argue it's never a good look when the underpants are hanging out with the socks. Anyway, let's do a wee quick check of the chat just to make sure that everything is functioning as it should be. Do we have any gremlins? It seems that we have no gremlins. Fabulous. No gremlins. It seems like everything is going according to plan. Now, let us see. News item number 2. Let's see what's going to greet us. So here we have an article from the BBC. Of course. I mean, the universe is so giving, isn't it? The universe is so giving. The next article would have to be from the BBC. Let's have a read at news item number 2. The headline is as follows. DUP will not be represented at Irish presidential inauguration. The first few paragraphs read as follows. The Democratic Unionist Party, DUP, has confirmed that it will not send a representative to the Irish presidential inauguration. Last week, Deputy First Minister Emma Little-Pengelly, could somebody help me out in the chat? Last week, Deputy First Minister Emma Little-Pengelly. Am I pronouncing that correct? I have a history of pronouncing words incorrectly, especially when it comes to names. We're going to run with Pengelly. Last week, Deputy First Minister Emma Little-Pengelly said it was not possible for her to attend the inauguration of Ireland's new president, Catherine Connolly, due to, quote, a number of other commitments in Belfast and Windsor, close quotes, to mark Remembrance Day. Alliance MLA Paula Bradshaw told the BBC's Sunday Politics programme that the DUP should send an alternative representative. Let's read this last bit. Bradshaw also confirmed that her party leader, Naomi Long, could not attend as she will be at a remembrance service, but Alliance will be represented by the deputy leader, Owen Tennyson. Little-Pengelly said she wished Connolly well and hopes to speak to her in the coming days. All right. So, the DUP First Minister, is that what she's called? The DUP, the Deputy First Minister, Emma Little-Pengelly. That's an interesting name. Little-Pengelly. Okay, so the gist of it. So the gist of this article. Emma can't attend the inauguration of the Irish president. Now, on previous episodes, we have talked on a few occasions about the recent Irish presidential election. So we've covered this topic a couple of times. And we've sort of got another article that's related to it. Now, what do I think when I read this article? What do I think? Well, I think this one's going to be pretty quick, actually. I have a feeling we're going to race through this particular article. So essentially, the BBC is telling us that the Deputy First Minister of the DUP party isn't going to the Irish presidential inauguration. Now, When I see this, my first thoughts are, I don't care. I do not care. I really couldn't give a fiddler's if little Emma, what is the name here? What is this name? Emma Little-Pengelly. I really don't care if she goes or not. Why do I not care? Well, this whole thing, the Irish presidential election, it's a whole bunch of suits and ties, elites, politicians getting together with their champagne glasses. Woohoo, Catherine Connolly, you're the Irish president. The Irish president, let's face it folks, can't really do anything. It's just a public position. There's really no influence to my understanding. So we're going to get a whole bunch of suits and ties, get together, pull out the firecrackers, throw off a few fireworks, sip a bit of champagne, give each other a pat on the back and say, well done, folks. I really don't care. If Emma doesn't want to go, I don't care. Me personally, couldn't give a shit. Now, that's just me, because it's totally irrelevant to my existence. I mean, think of it, folks, really. Think of it from your own perspective. If Emma goes or she doesn't, will this affect your existence? Let's take a couple of seconds to think about this. If Emma goes or she doesn't, does it affect your existence one way or the other? No is the answer. It does not affect your existence in any way whatsoever. These are high-flying people, people in political circles. What they do with their own time is up to them, as far as I'm concerned. Whether she goes, whether she sends somebody else, it is literally going to have zero impact on what I do or on my life's existence. Zero. So when something has zero impact on your life existence, would you expect the person to really care in this case? If this has zero impact on my life, do you think I'm going to care? Do we really care if something in your own existence has zero impact, zero relevance to your existence? Do you care about it? I would say probably not. We only really tend to care about things that affect our existence. So for example, if I were to look at my laptop and I saw, who knows, a Huntington's spider crawling across my keyboard. Now that particular breed of spider has a diameter of a dinner plate. So if I see that crawling across my keyboard, guess what? I care about that because it's a big arsed spider. I don't like spiders. It might be venomous. It could give me a nasty bite. I don't want anything to do with it. So I will care about the Huntington spider that's crawling across my keyboard. I'll really give a shit then. Emma Little-Pengelly going to the Irish presidential inauguration. I don't care. Does it affect me whether she goes or not? No, it doesn't. Now, this article though, why is the article even reporting about this? Well, I think this is straightforward, folks. People have certain feelings about political parties and all the rest of it. So when this article says that the Deputy First Minister, who's from the DUP, isn't going to the Irish presidential election, who is that going to piss off? It's going, even though it doesn't affect anybody's existence, even though it has zero relevance to our existence, whether she goes or not. The article, I could argue, one could argue that the article knows that even though it will have no relevance to anybody's existence, the article knows it'll piss a whole bunch of people off. In other words, it will distract a whole bunch of people. People will be going, she should be going to the inauguration. She should be showing her support. The DUP should send a representative. If they don't do that, well then, oh look at that. Well, they should be doing it. It's just distraction. The lesson, folks. What is the lesson from this article? This article, one could speculate, is essentially aimed at pissing off either hardcore Irish people or people who support the DUP. It's going to, in some way, generate a ferocious reaction in certain sectors of the population. Because certain people like these people, certain people like these people, and these people think that these people should respect their people and go to their inaugurations, but these people think that it's a waste of time and that has nothing to do with them. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. People will get pissed off. What happens when people are pissed off? What happens when the red mist descends? You get distracted. So instead of living your own existence, getting on with your own life, even though whether Little-Pengelly goes or not, even though it has zero relevance to your existence, you are dedicating precious time and energy to getting pissed off and distracted about something that isn't even relevant to your own life existence. What do I mean? It isn't even relevant. It has zero impact on your life experience. But here will be a whole bunch of people getting really irate and pissed off about something that is actually objectively irrelevant. So the lesson is, folks, when we see an article like this, what we want to do, no matter how we feel, we all have visceral reactions to media. And that's fine. I'm not saying it's a problem for you to initially maybe have a visceral reaction of being pissed off. That's fine. For a few seconds, you can kind of go, But then, what do we want to do? We want to sit ourselves down, breathe, and engage our noggin. Engage our noggin and think. Think critically. And think, does this actually have any relevance to me whether she goes or not? Will this affect my income? Will this affect what dinner I'm going to eat tonight? Will this affect my ability to go outside and have a walk in nature? Will this affect my ability to play the guitar? Will this affect my ability to go and meet the people who I love and care about and spend time with them? Will this actually affect any of those things? And if you come to the conclusion that it affects none of the things that you care about, then how about we take a step back and go, you know what? I don't care, and I'm going to get on with my own existence today, doing the things that are relevant to me. Whether Emma Little-Pengelly goes to the inauguration or sends somebody else is literally irrelevant. It means nothing to my existence. So why am I dedicating precious time? The most precious resource that we have is not money. It is not money. Money is very important, but it is not the most precious resource. The most precious resource that we have is our time. Your time is finite. When 1 hour passes, you can never get that hour back. So we need to think, if we're going to dedicate precious time to getting pissed off for the entire day about this article, or about the circumstances surrounding this article, we need to think, do I really want to spend my finite, precious hours getting pissed off over something that literally is going to impact me in no way whatsoever? Now you may say, I do want to get pissed off, and I do want to spend my time being really angry all the time. Fine. You are a free, sovereign individual. You can do whatever you want. But there will be some people who will think, actually, this has no relevance to me. And there may be some people who would say, you know what, in the past, I used to get really pissed off about this stuff. But you know, now I'm 50 or now I'm 60 years of age. And you know what? My time is far too precious. Far too precious. I don't care. Time for me to direct all of my focus and attention on number one. How can I keep number one happy? How can I maximize the life experience of number one? Okay, so that is our second story. The Irish inauguration. Catherine Connolly. I'm telling you, Catherine, if you are watching, this is the third time that you've wiggled your way in some fashion into our show. The amount of publicity that I'm giving you, 22 subscribers. Bandido Talks has 22 mighty subscribers. The publicity. I mean, Tim, Director General of the BBC, again, are you unemployed now? You've stepped down on your own terms. Again, the offer's open if you want to join Bandido on Bandido Talks. You know, send the CV, as I said. I'll consider it. And Catherine Connolly, President-to-be. I mean, the PR. Do you want to come on and do a little interview with Bandido Talks? We do guest interviews every Tuesday. That's the plan. So if you want to organise a little guest interview, I can give you your fourth appearance effectively on the show. Introduce you to the audience. Throwing it out there, Catherine. Drop me a message if you're interested in having a discussion with the Bandido. The Bandido's open to it. You could feature on our Tuesday upload. I'll leave that in your capable hands, Catherine. Okay. So, what time are we on? 58 minutes. Let's do another little check of the chat to make sure that the gremlins are being kept at bay. Let us see. Have we got any gremlins? There appear to be no gremlins. So it looks like everything is running smoothly. That's what we want to see here on Bandido Talks. Okay, so we are going to go for one more article. Let's see if we can squeeze a quick one in. They're never quick, but we'll see if we can squeeze a quick one in. Okay, so let's have a look. Our last article. Now, let's see. Is this one going to open? This one isn't going to open. Sometimes I have to click into articles, folks. Before I get too excited, I like to click in, see, is it going to ask me for some nonsense? Sometimes I have to click out. Let's have a look and see. So, this one is as follows. We have the Telegraph. Is the Telegraph going to allow me to get away with this? Let's have a look. Looks good to me. Okay, so this one's from the Telegraph. This will be our final story tonight. Let's see if we can rattle through this one. The headline is as follows. We appreciate you, Prince of Wales tells indigenous people of the Amazon. Prince William speaks to, quote, guardians of the rainforest, pledging to, quote, protect their rights and recognise them as, quote, global climate leaders. The Prince of Wales has told indigenous people of the Amazon that, quote, we deeply appreciate everything you do to protect their habitat. And now I've been just thrown up with, yeah, it's going to make me subscribe to this article. But I think we get the gist of this article. Okay, so it's going to make me subscribe. You could have told me that earlier, Telegraph. Of course, it gives me it lures me in. It gives me the illusion that I'm going to be able to read the entire article. And then, bam! It snaps me with a subscribe. Give me your email. You aren't getting my email. Your media should be free, in the Bandido's opinion. That's what I think. Don't present yourself as being free for the first few seconds and then have my attention glued on your article. Not giving no email. Anyway, so we get the general gist. The Prince of Wales is over in the Amazon, hanging out with the Amazonian tribes. An interesting pairing, one could say. So here we have, I mean, you just gotta love it. The Prince of Wales, who lives probably in a castle, is over hanging out with the indigenous people of the Amazon rainforest. Now, you might say, well, what's the big deal, Mr. Bandido? What's the big deal? He's over there trying to do something valuable, right? He's over there trying to protect their habitat because of climate change. So he's clearly, we can see from the headline and the subheading and a little bit the first paragraph, we can see the angle of this. The Prince of Wales is making it out like the Amazonian people, they're the climate warriors, you know, he's pledging to protect their habitat. He thinks they're great people. All right. So, again, what is there to learn from this very short article? Because, of course, the Telegraph wants me to provide them with information, which I'm not going to provide. Sorry, Telegraph. But anyway, the Prince of Wales is hanging out with his new best mates, the people of the Amazon rainforest. And it seems to me that the narrative that is being pushed in this Telegraph article is, I suppose we could say, the underlying current is that of climate change. Climate change. The world's climate is changing. Now, this is interesting. I find it interesting because for those of us who haven't really got a good grasp of the history of the Earth seems to be, oh, I don't know, 4.5 billion years old. So the Earth has quite a history, quite an extensive history. And I'm going to tell you something that's revolutionary. Are you ready for the big reveal? Throughout the 4.5 billion years of Earth's history, guess what has happened? I'll give you one guess. Long before humans, just so that I can set the scene a little bit more here, the Earth's predicted age, this big globe, this chunk of rock that we all live on, the predicted age of the Earth is about 4.5 billion years. Something in and around that. Humans have been existing on this chunk of rock for about 200,000 years. Homo sapiens, what we call modern day humans, have been living on Earth for 200,000 years. So we've got the Earth, 4.5 billion years old. Humans, we've been running around for only 200 odd thousand years. So, from the start of Earth's history, 4.5 billion years ago, up until the last 200,000 years, whenever we, as Homo sapiens, arrived on the scene, the Earth, it would be fair to say, has had a very, very long history. Human-free. We would agree. I think based on that basic mathematics. 4.5 billion years old, that's how old the Earth is. Humans have only been around for 200,000 years of that 4.5 billion year history. So most of the Earth's existence has been without the presence of humans. Humans have not existed on Earth, on this chunk of rock, for most of its history. Now here's the revolutionary thing that I'm going to tell you. In the 4.5 billion years, pretty much, of human free existence, guess what has happened on planet Earth? Across those 4.5 billion years. Guess what's happened? The climate has changed. Across Earth's history, the climate has warmed and it has cooled. It has warmed, it has cooled. Warmed, cooled, warmed, cooled, warmed, cooled, warmed, cooled. You get the idea. It is not unusual for the climate to change. Yes, you heard me correctly. It is not unusual for the climate to change on Earth. It has happened many times throughout the 4.5 billion year history of Earth. Long before humans were prancing around on the surface, the Earth has went through many changes in its climate. Many changes. Climate change is a part of the Earth's history. Volcanoes have erupted, throwing up into the atmosphere a whole bunch of smoke. Plants have died, the Earth has cooled, then it warms up again, then it cools. This has always happened throughout all of human history, throughout all of the Earth's history. The planet has warmed and cooled. So here we have the Prince of Wales, as presented in this Telegraph article, trying to make the case that, of course, climate change is this impending doom that's going to greet us all. In fact, we could actually forgive ourselves for thinking that when we read these types of articles, we could forgive ourselves for thinking that this is the first time in Earth's 4.5 billion history, 4.5 billion year history, it's the first time we could forgive ourselves for thinking that it's the first time that the climate has actually changed. I don't think that's unreasonable, actually. I think if you were to survey a bunch of people and say, do you think this is the first time that the climate has changed on planet Earth? The last 50 or 60 years, the last 100 years? Do you think this is the first time that Earth has went through a climate change event? I think a lot of people, a surprising number of people, would actually say, oh yeah, the climate's changing and, there's an impending doom coming. The world's going to end in 2030 if we don't pull our finger out of our rear and, stop the carbon emissions, and it's all going to come to a crumbling end. I think there would be a surprising amount of people who would think that this is the first time that the climate has changed in planet Earth's history. I don't think that would be an exaggeration. I think there are people who would legitimately think that. Because when you think about all of these media articles, climate change, the Prince of Wales is out with the Amazonian tribes. Fuck knows what language they speak. I mean, think of it. We've got the Amazonian tribes. They're probably standing there, with a leaf covering their ghoulies, with a spear, looking at this white dude called the Prince of Wales in a fucking suit and, I don't know, chinos. They're probably looking at this dude. The Prince of Wales is talking, telling them, oh yeah, you're the warriors of the climate. We're here to protect you. And these dudes are probably looking, going, who the fuck is this guy? Who is this white dude? Who is he? What's he saying? And there's probably some translator there trying to give a half-baked explanation as to what it is that he's saying. And as we know, when things are translated, there can be statements, etc., can be lost in translation, let's just say. I mean, the underlying motive of this article, one could argue, is to get the point across that climate change is going to be the doom of humanity. And here we have it. We're in such a dire situation that we have the Prince of Wales flying out to the Amazon to hang out with the Amazonian tribe members and have a conversation with them about climate change? Do we really think the Amazonian tribes are thinking about climate change? Do you think that's on their daily agenda? Oh, I wonder how much carbon has been emitted into the atmosphere today. Oh, yeah. Pressing concern for the Amazonian tribes. Yeah. I'm sure that they're very concerned about climate change, these people out in the Amazon. I'm sure that's at the top of their list of important things to think about today. So we have the Prince of Wales out in the Amazon, posing for pictures with the Amazon tribe or Amazon tribes. Who is he really speaking to? Is he really speaking to the Amazonian tribe people? Is that who he's really speaking to? Or is this to get you living in the United Kingdom or Australia or the United States or Norway? Is it to get you to care about climate change? Is he really out here because he really cares? Is the Prince of Wales out in the Amazon talking to a bunch of tribe members? Is he really out there because he cares about them? Really? He may tell you he cares about them. Is he really out there because he deeply cares about these people? Or is he out there because he has a message to send to you folks who are reading the article and listening to the news piece on the 6 o'clock BBC News? So that is perhaps the lesson from this article. The lesson would be, when we see something like this, we look at the celebrity. The Prince of Wales is a celebrity. What does he actually do? I mean, what does he actually do? Does he make anything? Does he produce anything? What does he do? Really? Think. What does he do? We always see him in the media. He's out talking to people. Here he's out in the Amazon. What does he actually do? I don't know what he does. But one could argue that he's out visiting this tribe to have you consume the media that comes off his visit. Is that a ridiculous thing to say? Because when I look at it, when I actually look at the picture, it looks so strange that you have this white dude from England out in the Amazon with a bunch of people who I have to assume haven't a clue who he is. If he's meeting with a genuine Amazon tribe member, I mean, if it's a genuine Amazonian tribe, these people, to my knowledge, are unlikely to have televisions and phones. If it's an actual, authentic hunter-gatherer tribe in the Amazon. So these people have no idea who he is. They don't speak his language. He doesn't look like them. They're probably standing there and thinking, what is all this about? And here we have the article barking on about climate change. We have the Prince of Wales barking on about climate change. So that is what I would say the lesson is. The lesson is, when you read this, we want to think, is the celebrity in this case is the Prince of Wales. I think he's a celebrity. I don't know what he does really of value, apart from just appear in the media and standing beside people. I don't know what he actually does. I'm not sure. Maybe you can inform me in the chat or the comments section. I don't know. He's a celebrity. He's standing with these other people. And the lesson perhaps would be, is the celebrity, in this case, the Prince of Wales, there because he actually really cares about it? Or is he there because it's part of his routine, his weekly routine this week? On his agenda is to go to the Amazon basin to hang out with the Amazon tribes. Somebody has written up his agenda for the week and said, Prince of Wales, sir, you're heading out to the Amazon, you're going to meet some people, you're going to stand in front of the camera, you're going to say what we tell you to say, you're going to smile, give a thumbs up, say, come on, climate warriors, we're going to protect you. You fly on your private plane back to the UK. So is he really out there because he wants to be out there? Or is he out there because someone has written his agenda for the week and said, you have to go out here, you have to say this, you have to stand with these people, and then you fly home. So that these people aren't necessarily going to consume the media that comes off this visit, but you're going to do this, Prince of Wales, because the media that we are going to present to our viewers in the United Kingdom, they are going to consume the messages that we edit together in our news segment. So this particular visit will be edited together. Now I wonder, will the editing be favourable or unfavourable? We saw in our first story, Donald Trump had some unfavourable editing thrown his direction. He was misrepresented in his speech. I wonder, will the Prince of Wales suffer the same fate, or will he get some favourable editing from his visit? And will a particular message be emitted out to the public, in this case about climate change? And will the editing be done in such a way to convince the public that climate change is a big deal? We could speculate on all of these things, but I think, as I've said, the lesson is, when you see celebrities in front of a camera and in the middle of media, we must ask ourselves, is the celebrity there because they actually want to be there, or are they there because their handler or their boss has said, you have this on your agenda this week, you're going to go there, say this, smile in this direction, and then come home, so that we have a news segment which we can edit together and then emit out to our population. This is how we could view this article, and this is the way that we could extract the lesson from the article. To think critically about when we see celebrities in media. Because normally celebrities have sponsors, normally celebrities have people, managers and PR agents and all of these people who are telling them what they need to do. Most of the time, it is not a genuine idea that has been birthed in their being. Normally, it's sort of along the lines of, we're going to go here this week, Prince of Wales. We're going to do this. Once you do that, you get paid. You're happy, we're happy, we've got the media that we want, we can edit it, we can paste it all together, send it out on the 6 o'clock news and have the public consume our edited version, either favourable or unfavourable, and then let it sink into the public psyche. That's the lesson, I feel, from news item number 3. And with that, folks, I think that draws tonight's show to a close. Before we finish up tonight, though, we're going to head over to the live chat. Of course, there may be nobody in the live chat. We had a message from Blondie at the start of the show, just to let the Bandido know that everything was functioning just fine. So let's check in with our live chat and see, have we got any comments? Are people engaging with the show? They may not be engaging. If they are, great. If they're not, oh well, maybe next time. Let us see what is happening in the chat. All right. Oh wow, we have a lot of comments. Okay, so let's go down through each of these comments, I'm seeing some familiar names. There are some familiar names coming up in our live chat. So let's see. Some of these people, some of these commenters have featured on Bandido Talks before. So let's have a look and see what our live commenters are saying. So we've already talked about Blondie. Blondie gave the Bandido the head up, or the heads up, I should say, that there were no gremlins. So let's hope that whenever I'm going, hopefully all these comments aren't about gremlins. If I read these comments and it's basically a whole bunch of different people saying, sorry, Mr. Bandido, your stream is full of gremlins. Oh well. Let's hope that's not the case. So let's see. Let's get into our first commenter. We have Lost Harry. Lost Harry has already featured in the comments in the live chat before. Let's see what Lost Harry is saying. He says the following. Nice to see the prince is looking out for, quote, his people. With a big green smiley face. All right, let's read out Lost Harry's comment once again, because I think it's relating to our last news item with the Prince of Wales heading out to the Amazon to talk about climate change. Okay, let's see. Let's read this out again. So, Lost Harry says, nice to see the prince is looking out for, quote, his people. So I think it's fair to say Lost Harry is referring to our last news item. And I think if I were to read between the lines of Lost Harry's comment, what he is perhaps alluding to is, currently in the UK, we are getting the rear ends taxed off us. Inflation is through the roof. There is word on the street that people aren't happy with their physical safety. People feel like their towns and cities are deteriorating. They are degrading. They feel unsafe. They feel like crime is on the rise. People feel unhappy with their ability perhaps to voice their opinion, whether in the real world or in the online world. There are a whole bunch of things we could speculate. We could say that certain people in the United Kingdom would say too much tax, too much of an unsafe environment, too much crime, too much inflation. Properties aren't affordable. Can't get a house. These would be things that certain people, not all people, but certain people might look at those certain points: physical safety, crime, taxation, inflation, property prices, all of these things. People might say the UK could be doing with a bit of TLC. So I think what Lost Harry is saying is that here we have the Prince of Wales. Instead of, one could argue, being back here in the UK, trying to deal with the issues that affect the UK, instead of focusing his attention on the UK, he decides to go to the Amazon. That's right, to the Amazon. How long does it take? Hold on. Let's have a look at this, folks. Let's see how long it takes to fly from the UK to the Amazon. Let's have a look at this and amuse and entertain ourselves. Why not? We've earned the right to do so. This is our last live show of the week. So let's kick back and amuse ourselves. Let's see. Flight time from UK to Amazon. Let's have a look. So, a flight from the UK to the Amazon rainforest typically takes around an average of 19 hours. 19 hours. So here we have, one could argue, a whole bunch of interesting things that are happening in the UK. We could speculate and say all these things that I've mentioned are happening in various places within the UK. And here we have the Prince of Wales, who, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, is from the UK, I believe. And instead of perhaps focusing his attention on the UK, he decides to take a 19-hour plane trip to the Amazon to hang out with his people. That's right. Who's the Prince of Wales's people? That's right, the Amazonian tribes. They're his people, isn't that right? I think that's what Lost Harry's getting at. Now, maybe I'm misquoting. Maybe I'm making an incorrect inference from Lost Harry's particular comment. But I find it interesting. It's not as if the Prince of Wales has, went up to Scotland, or it's not even as if he's went over to France, say a couple of hours over to France. We could still say, why are you not sort of focusing on the UK? You're flying over to France. What's going on over in France? What's so interesting that's happening over in France? But, we could sort of say, well, look, it's just an hour or two, a couple of hours in the airplane, and then he's back again. Oh, no. Forget about going on an airplane for an hour or a couple of hours. Oh, no. 19 hours on an airplane to the Amazon to hang out with his people. Okay, so that's what Lost Harry had to say. Interesting comment, I think. The Prince of Wales. Lost Harry says it's nice to see the Prince of Wales is looking out for his people. That's right, 19 hours over to the Amazon basin to hang out with his people, while here in the UK, one could argue there are legitimate things that we need to be focusing on. But no, we have to take a 19-hour flight over to the Amazon and talk about climate change, which of course, as we've already talked about, the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. The climate has changed in that time, but we're over talking about climate change as if it's the first time that it has ever happened on this chunk of rock. Anyway, that's Lost Harry. Let's have a look. Who else do we have? We have the Flying Dutchman. So the Flying Dutchman's back again. He's flew into the comments, into the live chat. Let's see what the Flying Dutchman has to say. He says the following. Maybe he's putting in a good word for Andrew after Charlie gave him the boot. The Flying Dutchman. Huh? The Flying Dutchman's been paying attention to his news. We have to give credit where credit is due. So what is the Flying Dutchman? I think the Flying Dutchman is actually replying to Lost Harry in the live chat. So again, the Flying Dutchman says, maybe he's putting in a good word for Andrew after Charlie gave him the boot. What is the Flying Dutchman getting at here? Well, I think it would be fair to assume that the Flying Dutchman is referring to Prince Andrew, who has recently got the boot from King Charles. King Charles got his favourite steel toe-cap boots and gave Prince Andrew a royal boot up the rear, kicked him straight out of the Royal Alliance and said, you know what? You ain't a prince anymore because you were hanging out with the wrong people. Of course, Prince Andrew, there's been a bit of a scandal. Prince Andrew was hanging out with his good friend, Geoffrey. And Prince Andrew has become a bit of a disgraced individual in the last few weeks, let's say. The media has been hitting him hard. King Charles, of course, the king of all people, has said, you know what, Andrew? I'm stripping you of all your titles. You're getting kicked out of the Royal Alliance. We don't want anything to do with you because you were hanging out with Geoffrey. Who is Jeffrey, says you? Well, all you have to do is go into Google, type in Prince Andrew and Jeffrey, and you'll get the answer to that question. So anyway, the Flying Dutchman's saying that maybe, who knows, maybe the Prince of Wales is putting in a good word for Prince Andrew after he got the boot at the orders of King Charles. So yeah, maybe the Flying Dutchman's speculating here. A whole bunch of speculation in the live chat tonight. The Flying Dutchman is speculating that perhaps, the Prince of Wales has headed out on his 19-hour flight, which is interesting because we're talking about climate change, isn't that right? That's right. The Prince of Wales is talking about climate change, and he's decided, how did he get from the UK to the Amazon? Did he swim? No carbon emissions when you swim. He probably took an airplane. Did that airplane release some emissions over the course of the 19-hour flight? Well, in order to remain in the air, I think it's safe to say some emissions were emitted. Only 19 hours. When was the last time you folks, watching and listening, took a 19-hour flight? So here we have people telling us, beware, the climate crisis is coming. Don't go on your holidays to Spain. Don't take a 2.5-hour flight to Spain. Don't go to the south of France where it's nice and sunny. Oh no, 2-hour flight? No, we have to cut carbon emissions. When was the last time you had a 19-hour flight? Anybody? A 19-hour flight? Has anybody had one? One would imagine that a 19-hour flight is going to produce a heck of a lot more emissions than our holiday to Benidorm. You know, whenever you go to Benidorm or Lanzarote, the Canary Islands, Spain in general, 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 hours if you're going to the Canary Islands. Don't be doing that, because remember, climate crisis. That's what the Prince of Wales, he's out at the Amazon. He's out with the Amazonian people. You're our climate warriors. We're looking out for you folks. 19 hours on the plane, emitting gas, I assume, into the atmosphere. Anyway, maybe the Prince of Wales, maybe he has went out to the Amazon to put a word in for Prince Andrew. Now that Prince Andrew has been given the royal boot up the rear by King Charles, maybe Prince Andrew has nowhere to live. Could be a legitimate circumstance. Maybe he has nowhere to live. Maybe he's homeless. This is speculation, of course. Maybe Prince Andrew is homeless as we speak. And as a result, the Prince of Wales has taken his 19-hour flight to go out to the Amazon basin. To, yes, talk about climate change, but also maybe to have a quiet word with the people in charge of these Amazonian tribes, and maybe with some of the tribe members, and sort of is having a quiet whisper in their ear and saying, look folks, I know this guy called Prince Andrew. Well, he was Prince Andrew, but he's not a prince anymore. But we don't need to get into the details of why he's not a prince anymore. He's called Andrew. I know this guy called Andrew. Forget about the prince thing. He sort of lost that title, and the King of England kicked him out of the Royal Alliance. But no, forget about all that. I know this guy called Andrew, and he's sort of been kicked out of the royal family, and he's kind of being disgraced over here in the UK, and we're going to run this article here about climate change, and I'm going to say about how you guys are great people, and you're the climate warriors for the planet, and all of that sort of stuff. But Andrew, my friend Andrew, he mightn't have a home to live in, so could you maybe provide him with a little hammock out in your tribe? He won't cause any trouble. Now, don't look up his name on Google. Please, don't look up his name on Google. Take my word for it. I don't tell porky pies I'm the Prince of Wales. Just take my word. Don't look him up on Google, okay? But my mate Andrew, he might be homeless. So, if you have a spare hammock, could Andrew come out and, chill out here in the Amazon. What was that? Sorry, can he hunt? Well, he's a. I think he's a quick learner. He might be able to hunt. What was that? Sorry, can he use a spear? Andrew. Well, look, as I said, he's been having a tough time recently, and I'm not exactly sure if he can use a spear. What was that? Sorry, can he pick potatoes? I think he can pick potatoes. Yes, he can pick potatoes. Yes, yeah. But anyway, forget about all that. We can cross that bridge when we come to it. He's a good guy, Andrew, and maybe could you provide him with a bit of a place to stay, maybe? Maybe that's what the Prince of Wales is doing, really, out in the Amazon basin. Maybe he went out there. Maybe the great deception here is he went out to give the illusion that he was talking about climate change, but really, maybe he's went out. Maybe the Prince of Wales has went out to the Amazon basin to talk with the Amazonian people because he's afraid for his mate Andrew and his homeless status. Maybe that's what the Flying Dutchman's saying. I don't know. Speculation. Anyway. Now, let's see what else we have. Blondie's back in the chat again. So what does Blondie have to say? Blondie says, Santa, with a Santa emoji, causes snow at Xmas according to the, in capital letters, data. Okay. How should we interpret Blondie's comment in the live chat? So Santa, with a Santa emoji, causes snow at Christmas according to the data. Okay. So I think, what is Blondie getting at here? So Blondie is perhaps being a touch sarcastic. Maybe just a little bit sarcastic. He's basically saying that Santa, it's not the weather. It has nothing to do with weather patterns. Nothing to do with weather, nothing to do with the earth and its atmosphere or anything like that. That is not how snow falls. Snow falls because Santa wants it to snow. So the data says that Santa causes snow to fall at Christmas. That's what the data says. So is Blondie making reference to, I don't know, how science can sometimes be manipulated? Could there be deception and porky pies in the field of science? Could there be deception and porky pies when it comes to climate science? Maybe that's what Blondie's getting at. So Blondie, with his very small dose of sarcasm, is making the point here that it's Santa. Santa causes it to snow because the data says that Santa causes it to snow. If the respectable journals, the respectable scientific journals, if those journals were to release a study that says the data through a regression model analysis with a p-value of less than 0.05, our study says that there's a significant relationship between Santa pressing the snow button and snow falling from the sky. Maybe Blondie's trying to point out the fact that there could be deception within the field of science. Maybe some of these journals post studies that nobody reads. Who reads studies? Unless you are an undergraduate or someone trying to do a PhD, what member of the public reads studies, really? So let's say science creates a study. It tells us that the data says this, so you just have to believe us because the data says this. Maybe that's what Blondie's getting at. He's getting at the point that science, while in principle is great, it's trying to always disprove itself. That's what science tries to do. It's trying to constantly disprove itself. Trying to prove that its previous assumptions about how the world works is actually, the previous assumptions are actually wrong. It's not trying to prove itself right. It's trying to disprove what has already been published in the scientific literature. What would happen if the science was being manipulated? Would that be an easy way to manipulate the public? Because, of course, people hold scientists and researchers in very, very high esteem. They are, quote, the experts. So perhaps if that institution, the scientific institution, if it were infiltrated and studies started to come out that actually are saying things along the lines of, yeah, it snows because our data says that Santa Claus in the North Pole presses the snow button and that's why it snows. Would people start to believe the experts? Could the experts deceive us in such a way? Maybe that's what Blondie's getting at. Who knows? Could the science be infiltrated by gremlins also? Interesting point of discussion. Let's get to our final live chat. Who do we have? We have Quizzed. Quizzed is back in the live chat. Let's see what Quizzed has to say. Quizzed has been a follower from the get-go of Bandido Talks. The first man to leave a live chat comment. Episode 3, I think. That's when we started to do the live streams. So Quizzed has been a loyal subscriber and follower. Let's see what Quizzed has to say. Now, what do we have? Quizzed is saying the following. Are you hinting at a conspiracy here relating to climate change, Mr. Bandido? With a crying smiley face emoji. Are you hinting at a conspiracy relating to climate change, Mr. Bandido? No conspiracies here. Speculation. Just speculation. It would appear that the Earth, throughout its history, has warmed and cooled, warmed and cooled. And if we believe this to be true, if we believe the Earth to be 4.5 billion years old, or thereabouts, and if we also believe that humans as Homo sapiens, whatever way you want to pronounce it, if we believe that Homo sapiens have been around for only 200,000 years of that 4.5 billion year history, if we were to assume and to take both of these facts or points of view as being correct, then would it be fair to say that the climate change that we are experiencing now, would it be fair to say that it may not be the first time in the 4.5 billion year history of the Earth? Is it a conspiracy to say that in 4.5 billion years there hasn't been one other occasion in the Earth's history where the climate has either warmed or cooled? Is that a conspiracy? Do we even really need some hardcore science? Because logic would tell you when something has been going for that long, and when continents have been moving around for all of that time, and when volcanoes have been erupting throughout all of that time, would it be unreasonable to speculate that this isn't the first episode of climate change in the Earth's 4.5 billion year history? Is that really a conspiracy? Perhaps Quizzed, what would I say to you? Is Mr. Bandido hinting at a conspiracy? Well, maybe we should ask the Prince of Wales. He's the man who's claiming, it would appear through the Telegraph article, he is the man who's saying, well, our climate warriors out here in the Amazon, we need to be preoccupied with climate change. It's a big problem. It's a big problem, folks. It's such a big problem that I'm going to get on my airplane and fly for 19 hours from the UK to the Amazon and back to the UK again. And maybe, you know what? Maybe I'll stop off in a few other parts of the world. Maybe I'll elongate my plane journey. Maybe we should ask the Prince of Wales. He seems to be the man who's trying to present the problem of climate change to the people. Us, the consuming public, the public who is consuming the media that comes from his visit to the Amazon. Perhaps quizzed. Such a question should be destined for the Prince of Wales. The Bandido is hinting at no conspiracy whatsoever. It is pure speculation. I'm not saying if it's right. I'm not saying if it's wrong. I'm just saying that there's some evidence that the earth is very old. There's some evidence that suggests that humans have only been trampling and running around the earth for a very short period of that 4.5 billion year history. And that one could speculate that in such a long history that perhaps there have been other episodes throughout this long history of the earth where the climate has either got a little warmer or a little colder. Speculation. No conspiracy here. Just speculation. Anyway, those are all our live chats. I want to thank Blondie, Lost Harry, The Flying Dutchman, and Quizzed for engaging with the show tonight. Excellent points of view in the chat. It's always good when there's engagement with the show live. Makes things entertaining instead of just the Bandido rambling all the time. So I want to thank all of our people in the live chat for leaving comments. I hope that there was some value to be obtained from tonight's show. If you liked tonight's show, it's our final live stream of the week. If you liked what you were hearing tonight, feel free to like the live stream. Hit the little thumbs up button. If you are watching the live show after the event has been posted, we've already had our live chatters, Blondie, The Flying Dutchman, Lost Harry, Quizzed. If you're watching the show after it's been posted, get down into the comments section. Let me know what you thought about the show. And of course, as I said in our little introduction, if you enjoy what we're doing here at Bandido Talks, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Every Tuesday there will be an upload with either a guest or a best bits compilation featuring highlights from the previous week's show. That's every Tuesday. And then of course, every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we are live here on YouTube at 7 p.m. That is the wrap for tonight, folks. That's a wrap for this week on the show. A great week it has been. Great week of shows. Even with Gremlins. Keep an eye out, folks. I will be posting part 2 of last night's stream tomorrow evening. It'll be posted as a video, not as part of the live stream. All the audio and video will be realigned, so you can tune in tomorrow night to all things Nancy Pelosi, and of course our live chat as well. We had some good comments in the live chat last night in our episode. So keep an eye out tomorrow. I'll upload that part 2. Otherwise, folks, enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Best of luck for the incoming week. And all being well, the Bandido will get chatting with you all live next Friday, 7 p.m. here on YouTube. Until then, folks, enjoy your evening, and it is over and out from the Bandido.